Greetings, everyone. I'm here with my dog, who we changed his name from Lucian to Solution. And he hopped up on my lap because he might have a sense, here if you can see him, he might have a sense that I'm jumping on to talk about solutions. So many of you know I've been gone from this page for about 5 months so that I can focus on our online school, the New Earth Self-Leadership Academy, and just keep my focus on the students and clients that are working with us. But obviously under the current circumstances, Spirit just suggested that I jump back on this Facebook page. And I really wanted to share these messages because one thing I woke up today thinking about is the fact that during this time where obviously there's a great deal of fear, understandably, and I just want to say that my heart goes out to anybody who is dealing with the virus. I certainly do not want to make light of the challenges that people are facing. I certainly do not want to disrespect the fact that many people are really experiencing a lot of fear and anxiety. However, I also want to say that that fear and anxiety is part of the ascension process, and it's something that we have to kind of move through to transmute and dissolve in order to get to the next stage as a species. So if you do experience fear, please don't be in judgment of yourself. In fact, if you are experiencing fear, one exercise you can do is to do the best you can to unblend from it. So imagine if your fear were a little child sitting on your lap. If a small child came up to you and was afraid, you wouldn't dismiss it, you wouldn't repress it, you wouldn't push it away. You would be very compassionate and loving towards that fear. So externalizing it helps us to create space around it so that we can remember that we are more than our fear, right? There's more to us than just fear, anxiety, and panic. So if you're experiencing any of those things, ask the fear, hi, Ashley, ask the fear, anxiety, or panic if it can just separate from you, even if you can just get an inch of distance, and imagine it as a frightened child on your lap, and then hug it. And if you have a hard time with that, if your mind has a lot of resistance to that, if it feels weird, if you can't access your imagination, grab a pillow and pretend the pillow is your fear and hug it. So this is one of the things that we work on in the shamanic healing process, is how to unblend from our extreme and traumatized parts, okay? Otherwise, what happens is that they overcome our consciousness and we move from the expansive eternal beings that we are into a level of consciousness that's very narrow, right? When we are blended with the narrow vision of our fear or anxiety or our panic, we lose contact with the massive resource that is the higher self. It's not that the higher self goes away. We're just disconnecting our consciousness from it. So if we can, even if it's just a millimeter of space between you and the fear, if you can create a tiny bit of separation, again, we're not dismissing it or repressing it. We're just creating a little bit of space, and then treat it as if it's a being outside of you, and send it compassion and kindness and calmness and even respect. Because at the end of the day, our fear has a good intention. It wants to keep us safe, right? And even though, I know very well that I'm an immortal being that never actually dies, that doesn't mean I'm here in this game to just, let disease overcome me, right? We need a feedback mechanism inside of us to keep us alert to, potential threats and dangers. So we don't want to dismiss it. We don't want to belittle it. We definitely don't want to judge other people that are in fear. We want to really tap into the compassionate presence of the higher self. And I don't care how traumatized you are. I don't care how much you identify with being a victim, because that's been your experience. You still have a higher self. And now more than ever, we really need that level of consciousness available on the planet, because The higher self only is in the now. It is not in linear time. Okay. When you're able to drop into the now, mechanically, fear and panic start to dissolve. The higher self is aware that we are all just source consciousness expressing itself and in the illusion of separation. So the higher self, it's not in fearfulness, it's not in lack, it's not in panic. It's calm, it's centered, it's present. You want to come up? Come on. It's clear, it's creative, and importantly, it's also courageous and confident. Okay. So, from the perspective of the higher self, even the virus is not foreign, right? It's not. Everything is source working something out. So, really, what I wanted to get on here to discuss is the way that we have been trained and conditioned and colonized to be fearful, hopeless, helpless, and in despair. And this has been happening for endless generations, okay? So we are living under a system that has deliberately kept solutions from us. So what this has done is that it's created a feedback loop that has created a false sense that our reality is more difficult than it is. Our reality is more scary than it is. There's this idea that things like cancer and AIDS and these, challenging diseases have no cure. You see my voice even dropped. I couldn't even say that because it's just blatantly false. There are so many people who've been curing these things with alkaline foods, high vibrational foods, doing their emotional clearing their emotional, mental, and physical bodies. And they are curing cancer even without surgeries, radiation, and all that sort of nonsense that the mainstream has been pushing on us as solutions. I don't understand in what reality it could make sense that toxic agents are the solution to something like cancer, but somehow we have been strung along to the point where we have accepted that. Okay, so I want everyone to just put that in the front of your mind and get curious about that. Is it really true that we have to be afraid? Now, there's a difference between fear and concern. There's a difference between fear and cautiousness. There's a difference between fear and sobriety. But the fear is just escalating and expanding. And again, when we're in a fearful state, the consciousness is narrow. When we're in a narrow consciousness, we don't have access to creativity and solutions. So again, if you can just create a little bit of space between yourself and any fear you may feel, and even the most woke people may have little bits of fear that pop up because a lot of things that are happening now are shocking and surprising. So love your fear like a sweet little baby in your lap, okay, and help it to dissolve, help to integrate it. I'm offering a workshop tomorrow to help you with this process. The link is in the description. It's only $22, and it is a process of working with stickers and journals in order to clear out the emotional and mental body. If you don't have access to stickers before tomorrow, you can just use art supplies. You can make clippings from magazines, represent the different parts of you. And Ashley says, yes, inner child work, root sacral chakra work too. Yes, get into this work. So now is the time that kind of, gives everyone an understanding of why us woo-woo spiritual people are constantly talking about inner work, clearing out the bodies, doing regular practices of, vibrational maintenance, because you want to do that during normal times. So when things get difficult, you already have a baseline of sort of centered calmness. So we are also offering on Sunday, my partner Kayvon Fair is offering a sound healing Qigong workshop. Also in the description, the link is there. It's $33. This is something you can do for the rest of your life. You can do it, even a quadriplegic can do this if you have any access to your voice at all. even if you don't have access to your voice, theoretically, you could listen to the sounds and it will also help you. So the sound healing is a very high vibrational way to clear gunk out of our system. And after even one practice, you are going to feel a difference. You're going to feel lighter, fresher, more centered, more clear. This is what we want to cultivate right now. Okay. So again, we don't want to disrespect fear. We don't want to repress it. We don't want to deny it. We want to externalize it, love it, dissolve it, and integrate it. That's what we're going for. So I also want to offer, just some practical tips of things we can do right now to boost our immune system. So obviously the Qigong healing is one. Even the work that I'm doing tomorrow, the shamanic healing work with our so-called inner children, that actually can raise your immune system as well, because believe it or not, all disease, it has a connection to something unresolved inside of us. So the process that I'm teaching tomorrow is to help you, again, externalize the patterns of thinking and emotions that are inside of you, externalize them so you can see them and be clear about them, and then transmute them with the beautiful resource that is your higher self, that I promise you everyone has access to. Everyone has a divine spark that can heal everything. Okay. So one of the things that we can really look into right now is herbs for healing. There's things like mullein, which is really good for the lungs. There's colloidal silver. There's a whole range of organic, beautiful, natural things that Gaia has provided for us, because the earth provides the solutions. The earth provides the cures. And our ancestors were aware of this. It's only because we've been colonized and traumatized and forced to think that these people in white coats with stethoscopes know everything. We've been duped. And one of the ways they did it is by making us fearful. We've been duped into thinking that these sort of very expensive, complicated chemicals are required to cure things. And it's just simply not true. My mother-in-law cured her stage 4 colon cancer with alkaline diets, herbs from a guy named Dr. Herb. Unfortunately, he passed away in a car accident, but this man was curing cancer left and right. He was charging something like $250 for the herb package for a month of herbs. She did green smoothies. Kayvon and his brothers cleaned out her house to raise the vibration. She watched a lot of comedy. Comedy is another thing right now that can really raise our vibration. And it is not blasphemous to laugh at this time. It is very healing. So bring the laughs. Colloidal silver, we have a story from our friend Danielle, who cured her dogs of parvo with colloidal silver. Now, the vets in the mainstream will tell you parvo is like a death sentence. It's so dangerous. They cured it with colloidal silver. We have a friend who's HIV positive who's been using it. His viral count is down to 0. So these things are real. We're not saying this lightly. We are not saying this just because we want to seem like we're special and have some special knowledge. We're sharing this with you because it actually works. We're sharing this with you because we love you, we care about you, and we don't want you to get duped into the fear game. We don't want you to get duped into the idea that consciousness and intelligence is centralized, that it's only available from someone else who's higher than us with fancy degrees or fancy uniforms. Okay. Everyone has access to this. The earth has provided the solutions and the cures. So what I really noticed, even in myself, when I woke up this morning, I was like, whoa, we're all getting pulled into this fear scenario, this doomsday scenario. And it's like nobody has mentioned, oh, there could be a cure available. Now I'm starting to see it on my timeline. After I had that meditation, now I'm starting to see that there's evidence that there's, cures starting to be available and so forth. But for now, you can take matters into your own hands, and herbs like gotu kola to clear your pineal gland so that you can take advantage of your multi-dimensional wisdom, right? So there's aspects of you that without any education at all know things. right? You may have intuition. You may be somebody who has a strong gut response. You may be somebody who, like in your human design, if you're emotionally defined, your emotional wave brings you a lot of clarity once it's cleared, once it's completed. So again, this is why we've been preaching about these things. I've been online for the last 10 years talking about this shamanic healing because of times like this. When there's a crisis, when things look crazy, the more that we have practiced getting into a centered space, the more we can show up centered, present, and calm. And we need this more than ever. Another thing I want to talk about is I've just seen several comments people making when I share these things about the beautiful aspects of what's happening right now in terms of, skies clearing in China and, the canals clearing in Venice. Just these short few days of us changing our patterns, we're already seeing results, right? So again, the gloom and doom scenario is, oh, global warming is here. We're basically done for. It's so hopeless, etc. And it's just not true. There are alternative solutions. There is clean energy. Hemp has been here the whole time. It was made illegal. Hemp is not ganja, okay? Hemp is they call it marijuana's sober cousin. There's so little THC that you can legally send CBD oil anywhere in the world because it has no THC. This was made illegal, right? So again, we have been tricked into thinking that we have to use fossil fuels, that we have to use dirty concrete, when there is hempcrete, there's hemp for fuel, there's hemp for healing. If you have problems with your nervous system, your stomach, with anxiety, I highly, highly recommend very good quality CBD oil. If you want to source, you should go to Granny's Hash in Colorado. They ship everywhere. They will do free consults for you over the phone, and they will also raise your consciousness because they have so much experience of people being cured with CBD oil. So they just have a confidence about them that is backed up by actual results they've experienced over the years. So again, these solutions are out here, but we've been tricked and deceived, and I'm just going to say, by demons, right? We think that many of these people who are supposed leaders and, the best of the best and the brightest of the bright who are giving these doomsday scenarios, we think that they know something. A lot of them, they're not operating from the human space, the heart-centered space, the higher self space. They literally have entities that have taken over them. And we have to get really sober about this and learn to distinguish between negative entities, parasitic entities, the demon realm, the reptilian realm, versus what is a real human, right? So the human vessel has an extraordinary capacity to channel in divine consciousness, divine compassion, divine love. But we have been corrupted for generations by these negative forces. There are parasitical, non-physical entities that have plagued us forever, right? And it's gotten to the point where we're so used to that now, we think that that's what humans are. Humans and demons are not the same. We're seeing demons overtake humans, and because they're moving through a human form and puppeting a human form, we have gotten confused and we think humans are despicable, selfish, cruel, violent, etc. Now, I'm not saying that isn't part of our spectrum, but that is never the whole story. Just as there's nobody who's totally 100% purely good, in quotes, there's also nobody that's purely bad, right? So we have to really be aware that there has been a concerted effort. There has been so much fake news about what humans are, but what we have seen is humans that have been manipulated, traumatized, and colonized. All I have is a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I could literally write a 100-page book about how very simple tweaks in the culture can leave us totally traumatized, split from ourselves with fragmented consciousness. And that is what has been done. If you want to know more, there's a trigger alert here, but you can look at the Harlow experiments on monkeys, right? So they did lots of experiments about what happens when you take baby monkeys from their mothers, when you put baby monkeys in isolated situations and you keep them from physical contact and their social group. It creates sociopaths. It creates deep dysfunction. Everywhere in the world, we have school systems that take children from their mothers at an early age. We call this education. We are told it's for our own good, right? And then we're also told like, oh, well, both parents have to work because that's just the way things are. There's not enough wealth and abundance. So everybody has to be in lack consciousness. So you've got to drop your children off at daycare so you can survive. Okay. So little things like this that we've come to see as normal, they have a very deep impact on the levels of trauma and dysfunction in our society. So once again, one of the messages I want to share is that we have gotten confused and we think that possessed humans are an example of what humanity is and the limits of what humanity has to offer. And it's just false. Humanity is here to channel divine light. Yes, we are susceptible to negativity. Yes, we are full spectrum beings, but we have an incredible capacity to bring our higher self-consciousness down to this very dense realm and lift the vibration, clear it out, make space, clean it up. Okay, that is available to everybody. I have clients who have experienced the worst trauma you could possibly imagine, and yet even they have a higher self that they can access. This higher self is an incredible resource that can actually heal anything because the higher self does not get traumatized. It witnesses trauma, it has compassion for trauma, but it is not traumatized. It is not in fear. It is not in lack. It is never in panic, okay? It has a calm, peaceful presence. It's a very spacious presence that it brings. It brings curiosity instead of an agenda. And that curiosity is what opens portals to creativity that we simply cannot access when we're in the narrow realms of the traumatized aspects of ourselves. Okay. So again, I'm not diminishing the experience of victimization people have had. I'm not experiencing the hopelessness that people have experienced. All I'm saying is that's just a very small part of who you are. There's something about you that's much greater than that that can heal all of it. Hi, everybody. Hi, Kimya. Hi, Christina. Yeah, dis-ease, Ashley said. Right. We don't want to be in dis-ease. We want to be in ease and calm. And everyone, that it's your birthright to access your divinity. Okay. Another thing is that the Abrahamic religions in particular, but all of them, Hinduism has corruption too. They have created a story that divinity is outside of us. They have presented demigods to us as though they were source itself. Okay. So the God of the Bible is not source. It's a demigod, right? I'm not talking about the Christ consciousness. I'm talking about fake gods that have been pushed upon us through trauma. And one of the ways they've been so effective at transmuting this from generation to generation is that they create cultures where the family gets involved in the church. And if you disobey the church, they have trained families to ostracize their children or their family members for not following church doctrine, right? We are social creatures. It is very challenging to step away from the social group because we are not here to survive on our own. Even those of us like me, I have a human design that's very individualistic. There was a time years ago, I lived in the mountains by myself for 6 months with zero socializing except for the occasional trip to the grocery store. And I was feeling good, actually. The majority of people are not built like that. Okay. But even I had to go to the grocery store. Even I, with all my individualistic aspects in my design, I need people. So we need each other. These religions were very crafty and clever because they recognize that. So they make obedience to the religion a requirement for you to stay in the group and even in your family unit. So over time, we have been taught fear. We have been taught that we are like nasty, sinning vermin, right? That we are, disgusting, that we can't fix things. We need some God outside of us to fix them. We are all slices of source having an experience of separation. But in truth, we are not separate. We all have access to this infinite divinity that can cure all of this. Okay. And it's real. I am not saying that it's easy to clear out the trauma. I am just saying that it's possible. I am not saying it's always easy when you're triggered in fear and anxiety to create some space, but it is possible. So again, in the description, we've got links to these workshops. Tomorrow, I am giving a workshop to help people deal with their traumatized parts in a way that's very safe and gentle. It's only $22. All you need is some paper. If you can't get stickers before tomorrow, just bring some colored pens, right? And then Kayvon Fair is offering the Sound Healing Qigong on Sunday. It is a very simple practice that's going to raise your vibration. You will feel a difference after only one practice. It is something you can use for the rest of your life to just do maintenance. So just like we brush our teeth every day, Sound Healing Qigong helps just clear the vibrational energy of our entire body, focusing on the major organs, and you can do it on a regular basis. So once again, if we do these practices on a regular basis, when we face a crisis like what we're in right now, we have so much practice at getting centered and being clear that it becomes much easier for us to stay calm, regardless of what external opinions are, regardless of what the collective consciousness is caught in, right? So humans are not demons. Major message, learn to know the difference. Recognize that there has been a concerted effort of fake news that humanity is crap, that we're nasty vermin, that we're pieces of shit. This is not true. Hemp and all types of other alternative energies exist, and there are intelligent humans who've been trying to develop it. They have been systematically squashed. Hemp was made illegal despite the fact it has no psychoactive properties. So let's just stay sober about this, okay? There are demonic forces, reptilian forces that are parasiting our planet. We can no longer afford to pretend that that's not true because pretense is where they thrive, right? But something is definitely changing because in the past 6 months, I have had actual demons register to have sessions with me. I was quite shocked. There's people who have entities that come to me that I pull off, but I'm talking about a couple of people who literally were speaking as the demon and didn't even know there's a difference between themselves and the demon inside of them. So what I'm trying to say is that this has become so commonplace that we have confused possessed people with what humanity is. Okay. Humanity has full spectrum. We can be nasty or nice, but importantly, we all have access to this divine higher self energy. Okay. The reptilians have cut themselves off from higher self energy to go in an extreme service to self game. And they think that, each of them think that one day they can be the top reptilian. So they're motivated and they think they're going to get something out of it. It's basically massive ego dysfunction. But remember that the only way those beings can function is to cut off connection to the heart space. So they live in this non-physical space and, the mental higher chakras, they tap into our lower chakras, they tap into that energy and manipulate us, and they bypass the heart, right? And they think it's funny. But one thing to really remember and be clear about is that once you're in the heart space, you automatically are vibing higher than any service to self being. So they can no longer touch you. Okay. I don't want to diminish people's fearful experiences with these entities because they can create an incredibly convincing, fearful scenario. They can do very negative things. They can possess people. Some of you may have experienced that with abuse growing up where an adult is possessed. You can see the shift in their eyes. This is a real thing that happens, okay? So it's when you're a child, I know it's a different situation, but as adults now, if we tap into the heart space and the power of the human heart, we move into a vibrational level that the demonic realm cannot conquer. It cannot get above that. So again, being in the heart, grounding in the higher self energy of compassion and clarity and recognition that all is connected and everyone is another self, you mechanically eliminate fear, okay? You may have a part of you that's still holding fear, but once you bring that part into the vibration of the higher self, the fear dissolves. So you have the power to rise above even these nasty entities, even people who are possessed by these nasty entities. You can do this. Everyone has this as a birthright. So it's very important to get sober that these entities have been manipulating our governments, our religions, our schools, and convincing us that we are the nasty ones when it's actually their behavior and their possession of humans that is causing these nasty situations, okay? Also, remember that a virus even in normal times, right? Just a normal cold or flu. Viruses eliminate like old dead cells in our body. They help us to clear things out. And that's one of the things that this virus is doing. It's like wake up call, getting us sober. One of the beautiful things about fear on the other side of it is it can bring you to sobriety. So this is an invitation for us to stop playing, right? Be playful, but stop playing, taking our own spiritual empowerment seriously, taking our own inner work seriously, taking our own responsibility and capacity to respond seriously. Okay. Everyone can do something. If you sit in your home and literally meditate and radiate love and compassion, you are doing something. You could do a simple thing. Do you have an elderly neighbor who's at high risk? Put on a mask, go grocery shopping for them. Some of my neighbors have been offering to do that for the elderly in our community. We can all do high vibrational things and stay safe. Okay, so I'm not telling anybody to tempt fate. I'm not saying don't wash your hands. I'm not saying nobody is affected and this is a lie. People are being affected, right? There's something really happening, but there's more to it than meets the eye. So again, that's why I posted the other day for people to, get that go-to cola in your system, clear out the pineal gland so that you can access your higher consciousness more easily. And this is also going to help you discern between what is true, what is a self-led, compassionate human being giving you a message through these black mirrors versus what is somebody who's being manipulated by negative entities. Who are these people who are really giving us bullshit, right? So we want to be sober. We can be cautious, take precautions, but we don't want to be in fear because despite the fact that there are people suffering and, there are people who are at risk, this is actually not a fearful time. This is a very exciting time. There are huge things happening behind the scenes. There are so many spiritual light workers who are doing so much work. I would actually like right now to just take a moment to send thanks and praise to the ancestors who are constantly working to support us, even though we've been colonized to not recognize them. We've been colonized to stop the practices of our ancestors that kept us connected so that we could continue to work in partnership with our own grandparents and great-grandparents. But they still are there and they still love us. And it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the most skeptical atheist. They still love you and they want to support us. So open to that love, open to the love of your own self, open to your own power, beloveds. You are greater than this. We are greater than this corruption. We are greater than the deception, and we are getting woke. Their time is over. A lot of the fearfulness that is percolating through the system is these demons recognizing that their time is up, but their fear is not our fear. Their fear is not our fear. Their fear is not our fear. Their time is up. Humanity's time is just beginning. It's a new day. This is a wake-up call. It's time for us to get sober. It's time for us to reprioritize things. It's time for us to really start to question, what are the things that we really need? Do we really need so much plastic shit from China? Do we? Of course, I love all humans and I want all the humans, even in China, to thrive. But I also don't want the humans in China to be sitting in these shitty factories where their souls are being killed. It's time for us to start to eliminate this bullshit. Okay. There are alternatives to all of it. There's alternatives to fossil fuels. There's alternatives to fossil fuel based plastic. Hemp is a real thing. It really works. CBD oil really works. Alkaline diets really work. Raising your vibration really works. Inner work really works. Sound healing really works. Shamans and medicine people are real. I don't care what your narrow-minded white coats have been telling you. They're trained in fear. Whether they know it or not, they are trained in behaviors to exacerbate fear in you. Okay, I know there's exceptions, and shout out especially a shout out to the nurses all out there who do most of the work. Let's be honest. the nurses who actually do the one-on-one care, okay? There's lots of people who've penetrated, who are like undercover light workers in that reality. And I just send so much gratitude. There are also doctors who are waking up, okay? So I don't want to disrespect the people inside of that system who are woke. But at the end of the day, you've got to question a system that gives you a diagnosis of cancer, fear, and then tells you the only way to cure it is by poisoning you, okay? It is dark magic. It is delusional. We have all been hypnotized and put under a spell. It is not real. The earth loves us. Gaia loves us. The ancestors love us. Source consciousness loves us. The fear and doom is not real, okay? So do the work of loving yourself. Do the work of taking time out. Calm yourself down, whatever it takes. I will also leave in the comments one of the graduates of our newer Self-Leadership Academy, Liz Dansby. She's doing excellent work. She's actually in my advanced program right now to learn the shamanic healing. She's also a psychiatric nurse who used to work inside the system. She's offering pay what you can services right now with the shamanic clearing, the same method that I use. There's lots of people out there with excellent videos on YouTube. So choose to watch videos of people who uplift you and empower you. Watch some comedy. Turn the Black Mirror off and listen to music that makes you feel good. Dance, get in the body. If you don't have access to a park, just stick your head out the window, get some sunshine on your face. Do some sun gazing. Anyone who hasn't heard of sun gazing yet, in the dawn hours and the dusk hours, just after the sun rises and before the sun goes down, it is safe to look into the sun. I have done it. Kayvon has done it. Thousands of people have done it, okay? We would never tell you to do something, especially Kayvon and I. If you know about human design, we are threes. We test everything before we suggest it. We test before we suggest. I have done sun gazing. My eyesight is okay. I have not gone blind. What it does is it drops light codes into the system. It helps you absorb vitamin D. Vitamin D is great for immunity. Okay, so do the research. If you have questions, put it on the Facebook timelines of some woke person Please, can you help guide me to, herbs that will help my immune system? Mullein is good for the lungs. Colloidal silver. There's all type of stuff I will put in the comments that are antiviral. I put up a post today about top 10 antiviral herbs. This stuff is real and it actually works. But just know that a lot of this stuff, especially the adaptogenic stuff like CBD oils and the mushrooms, they work by using them on a regular basis. So as you use them over time, they become more powerful. The pharmaceuticals have created some things that they give you a big hit right away. And a lot of the hit they give you is also manipulation. So it'll change the way that you feel, but it's not necessarily healing you, right? It'll deal with your symptoms, but it won't deal with the problem, the actual cause. These herbs will deal with the actual problem. So get alkaline. I'm not saying everyone has to be vegan. We are well aware that everyone has a different design and not everyone is here to be vegan right now. Future iterations of our species may well indeed become totally vegan across the board. But if you have to eat meat, try to go organic. Even if you normally eat meat, consider maybe doing just a little test. Be vegan for a week right now. What I've seen going to the grocery stores is that vegan stuff is still in stock, right? So try being vegan for a while. Try eating alkaline foods. I know that there can be a lot of resistance. I have struggled over the last year. Well, I've struggled for a long time, but over the last year, I've succeeded to get off of sugar. It was such a battle for me, but I feel so differently now. So what I've noticed is that with fasting and inner cleansing, the first few days are really challenging. But if you can get through that difficult corridor, you start to reset your taste buds. You start to reset what your body asks for, your cravings. And it starts to, things that before you didn't like start to taste good. Okay. So you can say, I really don't like the taste of vegetables, but you can change your palate over time. So just be aware that some of these things are uncomfortable in the beginning, but they have a huge payoff. So be patient with yourself. If you are trying to, make dietary changes, I especially recommend eliminating sugar, flour, and even alcohol. Alcohol in small amounts can be medicinal, but our livers aren't really designed to take that much alcohol. So during those first few days, during the first week, during the first couple weeks, you're going to have symptoms of crap releasing. You might get headaches. You might feel strange. You might have emotions come to the surface that were being suppressed by those colonizers' foods, right? So have distractions ready. Get a buddy. Do it with a buddy. And when you're feeling triggered to eat sugar, call your buddy, right? Use the buddy system. Set things up. Plan like a movie night with your family, right? And then plan to have something to eat that's not, the colonizer's food. So this is another thing. Part of the gloom and doom scenario, it has been so successful on us because not only were we traumatized, right? Because these colonizer religions were forced upon us by force. Our tribal ancestors were not looking for a religion. They were not lost and confused. They were not separated from Gaia, thinking that God had forsaken them, right? They had medicines. They had their own cosmology and their own wisdom, right? So these religions were forced upon us. And along with those colonizing cultures came colonizing foods, white flour, processed sugar, tobacco with additives in it, and alcohol has changed the way that our brains function. It has calcified the pineal gland. So they have set us up so that from the inside out, we are receptive to their nonsense. Okay. This is very important to understand. Like our physiology has been changed by the colonization process. So cleansing the physical body, cleansing the emotional body, cleansing the spiritual body, cleansing the mental body, all those things. It's a process on many levels. We know that it's uncomfortable. This is why coaches exist to help you through it. If it weren't uncomfortable, everybody would have been done this, because on the other side of that, you feel amazing. You feel like, oh, I remember who I am. You feel like, oh yeah, there's some drama going on, but actually I know what to do to keep myself centered and to make sober decisions. And that fear doesn't even touch me, right? So these sort of maintenance practices, these spiritual practices, the clearing of the vessels, they are designed to be done on a regular basis so that when crisis comes, we've already built the strength to stay centered. This is why all of us woo-woo people have been on here preaching about this. I've been on Facebook for 10 years preaching about this stuff, right? And probably like maybe 10% of the people who come across my messages actually like book work with us. So this is why we offer these services. There's lots of great stuff on YouTube. Now is the time to start researching it. And then also, just as a final thing I want to put out there, again, I'm not saying I know everything that's going on, but I am very tapped into people who do a lot of so-called woo-woo work behind the scenes, people who do a lot of interdimensional work, and people who do a lot of like hypnosis healing. So I take my time and I gather evidence before I come to conclusions. And I am the last person in the world who would advocate for a leader who is racist, who is classist, who disrespects people who are having a hard time, who are in poverty. So I know it's very, very difficult to see Trump as anything other than an orange bastard, right? Right? We've heard stories of what's happening at the border with Mexico, and a lot of them are disgusting stories. This is horrible stuff, right? There's horrible shit happening under his regime. At the same time, these QAnon rumors, at first to me, I didn't know what to make of it. But what I've been seeing from the people I've been talking to who do a lot of work of astrally clearing military bases is that a lot of the messages from QAnon, they're coded in ways that you might not understand if you don't speak military. There's certain words that he uses that people who are in the Navy, the Air Force, the Army can interpret. So just an idea that there may be more going on that meets the eye. There are many sealed indictments now, an unusually high amount. The Epstein case came out to the public. That is just scratching the surface. There has been a fantastically successful effort to run these pedophile rings. They have been stealing our children. There's even like that John of God situation where they were literally birthing babies to be fed into these satanic groups. This is a real thing. I know that this is triggering to think about and talk about, but this is a real thing. There are parasitic entities that are literally eating our children. Okay, so this is something that, again, we have to be sober about, and we have to just start questioning these mainstream media outlets and what they are presenting. Even if the QAnon thing is fake, okay? It is very helpful to open our consciousness to the possibility that there are people who have infiltrated through the military and government, who are aware of what's happening, who are very sober about the demonic presence in those organizations, who are dismantling it from the inside out. I personally had a profound prejudice against the military because my experience of it was only through traumatized people who came to me as clients, and I only saw the bad side. Reality stuck me in a new home surrounded by the military for the last 2 years. When I first got here, every time I saw a uniform, I had like trauma experiences. I was very triggered, so I had to really get into what that was about. And I've come to see that there are actually a lot of good aspects to the military. And while there's a small percentage of people in the military who are sociopathic and psychopathic, the vast majority of people in the military, they are people who want to be honorable, who want to do good, who want to support their fellow man, who really actually do believe in the higher principles of freedom and justice. And they have trained for years and years for times like this. There are good people in the military. There are even good people in the government, right? There are people who go into the government and they might be a little naive, but they really go in with good intentions. So we want to open up our consciousness to the possibility that inside those structures that are mostly negative, there are people kind of dismantling it from the inside out who are aware of what's happening and are trying to dissolve those structures. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we're seeing on the news, the motivation of a lot of these structures is child trafficking rings. There was huge protests in Belgium years ago because they discovered that like the judges were in on it, their entire political system was in on it. Belgium is really just a microcosm of what's happening everywhere. This is cross-national, and it's a real thing. And I have to speak out about it because for 10 years, I have been doing shamanic healing with the victims of these trafficking rings. So we got to get sober about that. We have to start to take our energy away from centralized power. We have to take our energy and our consciousness away from this idea that like there are people above us who are greater than us. I'm not disrespecting, people who've spent years of their life studying medicine and who really have good intentions, but you have a higher self that knows what is right for you. Okay. I can't tell you how many experiences I've had of doctors who've dismissed, my claims. And this is why I've just really stopped dealing with them altogether. I only deal with, people who are willing to treat me holistically and who understand that like herbs can actually heal, who don't want to give me pharmaceuticals. So just because they have a white coat on, it doesn't mean they know better than you do what's right for you. So really practice like tuning in to your inner guidance so that you can be clear. A lot of the solutions, unfortunately, are not going to be found inside of that structure because even the people who mean well, they've been traumatized. Okay. A lot of doctors, they operate in fear because lawsuits are always a potential, right? So they're like, oh, the legal system says I have to follow these so-called best practices. So they're like legally bound to do things that aren't actually good for their patients, like, giving cancer drugs. But there's always this fear of being sued. So you have to really be sober about entering a fear paradigm when you want to heal yourself. Okay. The fear thing has just really duped us. We have been bamboozled for generations. So we don't need to judge ourselves. We need to really be cautious about the disrespect for ourselves as humans that has been brainwashed into us. We have been taught that we are terrible. Humans are not terrible. We are full spectrum, but we're not evil or bad, okay? Learn to distinguish between the human, which is a full range, which includes the heart consciousness and the higher self access, versus a person who is possessed by negative parasitical entities. That is not an example of what humans are capable of in the higher vibrational aspect. Yes, we can succumb to that as we've seen, but we are greater than that. So really, I feel like this virus is a call for us to just start to get really sober about taking power back, decentralizing power, decentralizing wisdom, getting rid of this hierarchy of intelligence, saying that only people with degrees know the answers and that uneducated people can't possibly know. Some of you may have heard the story. There was a story I was told about a young man in Latin America who, when he was little growing up, he would watch how lizards would lose their tail and then grow them back. And he had not been educated to know that humans couldn't do that. So he lost his leg and he grew it back because nobody had told him that he couldn't do that. Okay. So we have to just get sober about a system that shares fear all the time, that makes us fearful, while also just teaching false doctrine. It is not true that the only way to cure cancer is with poison. It's not true that the only way to cure viruses is through pharmaceuticals. Okay, so let's just stay sober about that, because even a lot of us who know that can get triggered back into the fear because we've been so conditioned, right? So really be careful about what we're letting into our consciousness, what we're believing, what's sticking. Gotu kola is really helpful to clear the pineal gland. You can take it in tea form, which is ideal because it's easy to absorb and it will help obviously hydrate your body, but you can take it in pill form just as well. I do the pills because it just helps me to stay consistent. Oh, last thing. There is this story about something called Nesara, Nesara. I will post on it in the thread here. It's something I would really love people to just take a look at. Again, I am not saying QAnon is true. I am not saying whether or not Nesara is, something that's already real. What I'm suggesting is that we open our consciousness to the possibility that other things are going on behind the scenes. These things have not been revealed yet because you have to operate very carefully when you're trying to defeat this demonic realm. You don't want to play your cards too early, right? But there is something called Nesara that has been in the works for a long time that is designed to basically reset the financial system, right? We know that our financial system is unjust. We know it's skewed. We know that our government has been screwed by the financial system because these people who are possessed by negative entities can pay their senators, congresspeople, presidents, etc., to change laws on their behalf, to change laws about how we treat our environment, to change laws about what pharmaceutical companies are held responsible for or not, right? So research this Nesara. It is, I believe, a 19-point plan to just shift the way our economy operates to make sure that everyone is resourced. Okay. So that is like the as above, so below. Just as we're all resourced with higher self-power, which is the power of compassionate presence, which is the power of patience, connection, courage, and confidence, so it must be below. And we are really entering a time where we have to just reset the field because the solutions are here, and it's nonsense to have people not be able to access resources. The resource of human intelligence and creativity has to be unleashed. And if people are working jobs that don't respect their soul and spirit and the true gifts that they have, if they're working a job just because they have to pay rent, if they're working a job because they got to pay the bills because we're under this false idea that we can't just have free energy, it's backing up the pipes. We're not having access to all the solutions that are sitting here already. I saw an 8-year-old girl in Mexico created a solar panel. So you're telling me an 8-year-old can solve her energy problems, but these ning-nongs in Congress can't solve it? This is nonsense. The solutions are here. They have been suppressed. They have been suppressed because there has been a well-organized, concerted effort by parasitical, non-physical entities to manipulate us as a species so they can feed off of us. They feed off of fear. They feed off of pain. They feed off of terror, anger, and sadness. That's like the most delicious juice to them. Okay, so again, we don't want to repress those feelings. Don't repress your fear, sadness, or anger. Separate it a bit. Imagine it's a child outside of you and treat it with confidence, treat it with calmness, treat it with compassion and presence and respect and love so that it can release the charge and dissolve back into higher self presence. We have fractured consciousness. We're like Humpty Dumptys walking around. So again, we are limiting our vision of what is possible based on damaged, colonized, possessed humanity. That is not the whole of what humanity has to offer. There's a real glass ceiling effect going on here that we think that we're horrible, we're selfish, we're polluters, there's no hope, the planet's going down. Okay? We don't know that that's true. That is the propaganda. My experience, I've been a healer for like 24 years now. I've been working in the healing industry, 22 years, something like that. My experience is that even people in the most extreme circumstances have the capacity to heal. They have the capacity to connect with their higher self and bring down that divine goodness to whatever they are carrying in terms of burdens of fear, shame, terror, etc. So I just wanted to share this message to remind people that we are better than the propaganda that's been spread about us as humans, okay? It's like we've been tricked into thinking that the demon's karma is our karma, that the demon's limitation is our limitation. The limitation of reptilians comes from the fact that they're disconnected from the heart space, they're disconnected from the higher self, which means they're disconnected from resource. They are not resourceful, so they're parasites. Humans are not parasites. We have access to the ultimate resource, which is source consciousness, which is your higher self. We have access to solutions for everything. We have access to cures for everything. That is the truth. That is the truth, not this other gloom and doom nonsense, okay? So take a breath and separate from it. Connect with your ancestors. If you don't know how to do that, intention is everything. Get a picture of them. If you don't have pictures, like Kayvon is in a situation, his mom's house had a fire years ago. They lost most of their family photos. So he just wrote out a book. It's called the Ancestor Book of Names, and we have it on our altar. Write their names down. Some of these ancestors, you don't even know their name. You know, I've discovered that there's ancestors working with me that I don't even know who they were when they incarnated here or how we're related on the physical realm, but they're like totally on my side and championing what I'm doing. And you have access to that. Also remember that if there's ancestors you knew when they were alive here and you did not have a good relationship with them, when people pass over, they move back into the realm of unity consciousness. And even people with some really nasty attitudes, people with whom you have like a disconnect or hard feelings, all that dissolves when they leave their body. Now, there's a few examples where people get stuck in sort of like, for lack of a better term, a purgatory, where they're just so traumatized and damaged that they can't accept the love of unity consciousness, but that's more rare. You know, there's hungry ghosts around the planet who died through trauma, who didn't pass over properly. But the vast majority of our ancestors, they're in unity consciousness, but paradoxically, they still have a sense of individuation within that unity consciousness. And they want nothing more than to connect with us, partner with us, uplift us, and help ground miracles down into this reality. Because the realities of the different dimensions are interconnected and affect one another, right? So if you don't know how to work with the ancestors, get a glass of water, get a candle. If you don't have a candle, get a lamp to represent the fire, right? And just with all sincerity and with an open heart, just start talking to them. They can hear you. they really can hear you. And talk to them just like you're talking to a real person, because it is that real. And let them know that you love them. If you haven't connected in a while, you can just, send apologies for not connecting. They are going to forgive you, but they need our conscious connection in order for that relationship to operate optimally. Also, by connecting, we give them permission to come closer and be more involved. Spirit guides, angels, ancestors, they respect that we have free will, and they also respect that we came here for an experience of contrast. So they're not just going to override our choices and do everything for us. It's a partnership, right? It's not about putting them on a pedestal and worshiping us. It's about continuing the relationship because they still exist. Their consciousness still exists. Their body might have dissolved, but they still exist, just as you and I will still exist when these bodies are done, right? So make that connection. Invite them into your heart space. Talk to them like they're real, because they are. The non-physical realm is full of benevolent beings that want to help us through these times. They want to uplift us and bring us to the next level of experience. The trauma that we've experienced in this nasty Kali Yuga time has been very extreme. I can't tell you how horrible the stories are sometimes that I hear in my work. The things that human beings have done to each other are horrible. But again, remember, human beings are not demons. We are full spectrum, and we can get conscious and make a choice about what aspects of that spectrum we are allowing to move through our field, to move through our physicality, to move through our consciousness. So now is the time, now is the call to be woke, to get into the heart space, to overcome the fear and anxiety with love, connection, and compassion. Disease has emotional components. It has psychological components. So doing this work raises our immunity. Okay. If you want help, we've got two workshops this weekend. Please join us. The prices are very low, particularly if you consider the impact of what these practices can do for you. So we urge you to join us. If you're not able to join us, we've got free videos on YouTube. Just look for the channel called Activation Coaching. There's tons of free stuff on YouTube. There's free meditations. If you're exhausted and can't do anything, just do guided meditations. Even if you fall asleep during it, it's okay. Just the intention there is going to help shift things. So, beloveds, I don't want to diminish or judge anybody who's feeling afraid right now, okay? It is actually part of the ascension process to move through the fear barrier. So if you're feeling afraid, it doesn't mean you're not good enough or that you can't ascend or that you're just not woke. Part of the awakening process is to feel the fear, move through it, create some space around it, let the fear sit in your lap and love it like it is a beautiful child who's just confused. When we do this as a collective, we can really shift out of this thing. We can change our attitudes and we can start to manifest the new world that we ordered. Forget the new world order, okay? The demon and reptilian realm, they're very good at making us afraid and making themselves appear so powerful. The black mirror does not have to be our reality. We can construct a new reality where the earth is cleaned up, where the fuels we use are not going to pollute this plane. The medicines we use don't have all these negative side effects, where we're not medicating our children beyond belief. We can change all these things, but it takes each of us making choices on a daily basis. So we have to actively be a part of it. We cannot wait for external authority to make the changes, because much of external authority has been corrupted by negative parasitical entities. We cannot wait for them to make the choice. It's up to us to make the choice to ground in our divinity and allow our divinity to guide us, allow our divinity to make our choices, allow our divinity to show us what is of value, what is something that we need to prioritize. Okay, so I've been talking way more longer than I thought I would. I just want to send compassion and love to everybody. And I'm going to close with a meditation to ground in the higher self. You can do this every day. You can do this 5 times a day. It's something that everyone has access to. So we're going to have an experience of that right now. I welcome you to join me. If it's safe for you to close your eyes, you can do so. We're going to slow down our breathing. So one trick if you're experiencing anxiety is to lengthen out the breath, inhaling, expanding the lungs and the belly. And then as you exhale, actually keep the belly expanded. This is going to help trigger healing of the vagus nerve. So really slow, full, long breathing. Inhale, expand. As you exhale, keep the stomach pushed out. This is really going to slow down the nervous system and slow down the brain waves. Now, as we open to ground in the consciousness of our higher self, just a reminder that this is an organic process available to anyone. You don't have to meditate for 100 years in the Himalayas with the Dalai Lama in order to connect with your higher self. It's a very, actually, surprisingly simple process that just requires us to relax for a moment and receive the vibration. So on the next inhale, pull in compassion and connection. The higher self is always anchored in compassion, effortless compassion, because it is aware that we are all connected. Everyone is another self. We are all source consciousness having a limited experience of separation. So when we can tap into that memory of connectedness and compassion, there is literally no more room for fear, because if everything is me, what do I have to fear? If everything is me, then nothing is actually beyond my control. And as we exhale, we're going to release that compassion and connection into the world around us. On the next inhale, we're going to pull in the vibration of clarity and calmness. And we're going to invite this vibration into every cell in our body. Our bodies were made to hold this vibration. They love the vibration of calmness and clarity. The vibration of calmness allows our body to reset back into optimal functioning. Okay, so remember that the higher self is only in the now moment. It's in stillness all the time. It's not freaking out. It's not moving, through linear time. So it's not in panic. It doesn't have an agenda. It knows it's immortal, so it's not afraid of death. So it can always be a calm, clear presence, regardless of external circumstance, regardless of what may be triggered inside of us. So again, if something heavy is triggered, if you can create a little separation, ask it to sit on your lap, and then just send it waves of calmness, clarity, compassion, and connection. Relax, allow, receive this vibration. And as you exhale, release the calm clarity into the world around us. There's plenty to go around. Share it with your brothers and sisters to the north, south, east, and west. Okay, 2 more rounds of this breathing. On the next inhale, pull in confidence and courage. The higher self is not touched by trauma. The higher self is not touched by death. It does not die. The higher self is only in the now, so it's not panicking about time. So it can show up with confidence and courage regardless of external circumstance or internal circumstance. The confidence and courage of the higher self comes from the fact that it is our own divinity. It has nothing to do with any sort of ego-based agenda of trying to prove oneself or belittle others or be the best. It's not a false confidence and courage. It's not ego-based. It's quite the opposite. It comes from a place of no ego. All is self. Therefore, what do I have to fear? All is self. My resources are limitless and endless because everything and everyone is me. So I have no lack consciousness. I have no panic. I can remain calm, clear, centered, confident, and courageous, even in the face of trauma and crisis. So as we exhale, we're going to release that confidence and courage into the world around us, share it with all of our brothers and sisters across the planet and across the galaxy. Last round. On the inhale, we are going to pull in curiosity and creativity. Higher self in the now moment is not limited by linear time. It has no agenda. It has no need to panic or fear. Instead of panic, fear, and agendas, it brings an open, spacious curiosity that feels amazing. There is absolutely nothing like the healing power of being curious or being with someone who's holding the space of curiosity, who's not rushing you, who's not telling you how or what to feel or what to do, but just creating a curious, open space to be with what is. If what you're feeling right now is crappy, the higher self can stay curious and open. It doesn't have an agenda to tell you to feel something different. It can love the crappiness. It can love your anger. It can love your feelings of revenge. It can love your hatred. It can love all of it. When we get into the state of curiosity and drop agendas and drop the panic, we access levels of creativity. We access solutions, we access cures that we literally could not see or sense or know when we were in the limited perception of the traumatized parts of us. So getting curious, even getting curious about part of us that isn't curious, even getting curious about part of us with an agenda, just creating space. So helpful. So as we exhale, we're going to release this curiosity and creativity into the world around us, spreading it in all directions, sharing it with all our brothers and sisters around the planet. Allowing the higher self energy to fill up every cell of our being. It is our birthright. We are built for this. We are made for this. You have a right to this. Everyone has a right to this. Breathing it in all the way down to the tips of your toes, every toenail and fingernail radiating compassionate presence. If you can ground in this compassionate presence, you actually don't even have to do anything. That presence alone is enough. It will bring the miracles that we long for in a time like this. So thank you to anyone who's joining. Thank you to anyone who sat through the recording. I just want to send love and hopefulness and empowerment, joy and delight. I want to send a vision of a new tomorrow. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow is going to come. Tomorrow is going to ask for solutions. So let's start planning out the solutions now. Let's plan to win. Let's plan to succeed. Let us plan our victory as a species. Let us plan a reality where we are no longer plagued by parasitical entities. Let us plan a reality where we are walking around in our divine consciousness, where we can start to love one another regardless of all the divisions that have been conditioned into us, all of the trauma that has been unresolved, that has caused us to be afraid of one another. We can dissolve all of that. We can beat this problem. We can use this as an opportunity to make real change, because this is sobering all of us up. This has shocked everybody. There's actually an activation, I believe, coming through If you know about human design, the shock activation is here. I think it's gate 51. Everyone's quite shocked, but that shock is not the same as fear. And the shock is just an invitation to make big changes. So let's do it. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable, but we have to be big boys and girls. Okay. We have to be willing to move through what is uncomfortable to get to what is delightful. We have to be willing to move through what is unpleasant and challenging to get to what is easy and beautiful and flowing. And we have a right to all of that. So let the fear sit on your lap, give it love and compassion. Let the anxiety sit on your lap, give it love and compassion. You are not your fear. You are not your anxiety. You are not your despair. What you are is a divine being that has the capacity to move compassion through our reality and shift everything for the better. Shift everything. And if you're in so much depression and despair that you can't do it for yourself, do it for the next generations. The children coming in, they deserve to live in a planet where they're not subject to predatory behaviors. They deserve to live in a planet where they are safe and protected in the early years, where the aura is delicate, where the aura is vulnerable. They deserve protection. They deserve to live in a planet where they can grow and thrive. We all deserve to live in a planet with clean energy sources. We all deserve to have only organic food available. We actually deserve that. We really and truly do. All this nonsense, it's coming to an end. The fear that's out there is the fear of the nasty parasitical realm that is meeting its demise. Their end is not our end. Their fear is not our fear. So stand proud, hold your head up. Human beings are beautiful, beautiful creatures. We are a beautiful species. We don't even know who we are yet. We have not seen what a true human is yet. All we have witnessed and experienced is colonized, broken humanity. But that is not who we are. That is a false view. Okay. But we can get to the other side of this. We can cross this bridge, but it's going to require each of us to do our part. We can no longer depend on external authority to fix this problem. We have to play our roles. So, in the words of Kayvon Fair, I love you. I accept you. I forgive me. I forgive all of us. I even forgive the parasites, because the beauty of what the parasites have done is to show us where we're vulnerable, show us where we're asleep, show us where we need to change, show us where the holes in our auric field are. And it's good to know they've given us the diagnosis. They've showed us where the problem is. Now it's up to us to step up and fix it and heal it. And we can do this. We've got this. We've got this. We are source consciousness embodied. You can't say there's a limit. Okay? So thoughts and prayers with everybody who has been touched directly by the virus. And if you are on the call and you feel moved to send love and upliftment and compassion and clarity and calmness and powerful healing light to everyone who's been affected. Let's also send it to anyone working in hospitals. Let's also send it to all the truck drivers moving goods around so that we can get food and supplies. Let's send it to all the people working in grocery stores, even at risk to their own health. Okay, so let's just send that radiating light across the planet. And remember, what we see in the black mirror is not an accurate depiction of the full reality. There's lots of people who've been working at this 24/7. There's lots of people who have incarnated for this time who are really holding the ground for us. They're really holding it up for us, okay? But we cannot expect them to do everything. We also have to step up, and you can do this. We've all got this. So much love to everybody. All the best to you. If you know of herbal remedies, I welcome you to share it in the comments, particularly if it's something that has worked for you. So maybe also specify if you've had experience with it or you've heard that it works, okay? Because it's very powerful for people to hear stories of being cured, you know, from someone's direct experience. So please do share that. Take care out there. And find ways to have fun, find ways to be in joy and delight in these times, because the crisis is an opportunity. We really have an opportunity to change things. All the best to everybody. Take care.